I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it's like none of us are the worst thing that we've done in our lives. And just remembering that we get to wake up and choose the state of our mind every day. And that's going to completely potentially change the entire course of your life, to grasp the power in that and to hold on to it and cultivate it. Do something with it. Even if it just means you're a happier person. That in itself is a huge win in your life, you know? Even if it means you stop going back to prison, you stop going back to addiction, you stop letting people abuse you in relationships, whatever it is that your demons are, like knowing that you can choose something different and facing your fears. You have to take responsibility for who you are, the good and the bad. Sometimes more so the bad, because that's what you need to
That's where real
change.
change happens, right?
Yes, that's right.
What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassity. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right, welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out listeners. This is where you come for what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Folks, don't forget to follow, subscribe, like this thing out, share it up. It really helps the show. I really appreciate it. So who are we talking to today? Well, I am absolutely fascinated by my guest, Cheryl Armstrong, and I want to give a shout out to Kristen Johnson because I saw this thing, that this article about Cheryl, and I reached out to Kristen because it looked like she was connected with her at the event. She's, oh gosh, yeah, I'll connect you. So, Kristen, thank you so much. A little bit about Cheryl Armstrong. She's a two-time international best-selling author, powerful keynote speaker, and the founder of Plant Your Energy, which I love that name, by the way.
Thank you.
Plant your good choices one at a time. Um, Cheryl's nightmare is like something that you turn on the TV and go, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that happened. It began at a very early age, at 16 years old. She was sentenced to decades in prison at that age. And that moment could have permanently had defined her future. Instead, she endured, evolved, spending 26 years incarcerated while doing the internal work that would ultimately transform her life. Behind the walls, Cheryl began planting the seeds of accountability, mindset, character development, and personal responsibility that would later become the foundation of her Plant Your Energy Life Skills and Character Development program. In this episode, Cheryl shares what it truly takes to survive decades of incarceration without losing hope, and how she emerged with a clear mission to help others break free from mental prisons long after the physical ones are gone. She explains how intentional energy, daily discipline, and ownership of one's choices can turn even the darkest chapters into a source of purpose and power. I cannot wait to jump into all this because I think it's just, I want to ask her so much about everything that she's gone through. Before we do, I want to recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct. You know, who likes spending a couple of weekends walking car lots looking for a car, and then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car? It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. Negotiate your best price. They also offer warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Folks, I want to share with you a powerful and moving new book you won't want to miss. My Name is Saffron. Voices, silenced, stifled, and taken away by author Saffron Gustafson. This isn't just a story. It's a journey through resilience, survival, and reclaiming your voice after being silenced for far too long. Saffron's story takes you inside the hidden struggles, the pain, and ultimately the triumph of refusing to be defined by circumstances. As Saffron was putting the finishing touches on her book, the prison she had just been released from, Federal Dublin FCI, was permanently closed because of sexual abuse of the women prisoners. If you've ever wondered what it takes to rise from the darkness of places, to find your truth, and to speak it boldly, this book will inspire you. Pick up your copy of My Name is Saffron today, available now on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Trust me, you'll be moved, challenged, and changed by her story. Cheryl Armstrong, welcome in. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. So, uh, gosh, where should we start? Why don't we start where, because there wasn't that much time before all this happened to you. Um, Growing up as a kid, before you were 16, where were you? What was life like? Where were you living? Mom, dad, siblings? What was going on?
Yeah, it's kind of sad actually. I just want to note that usually when I share my story, it's like I always start it when the crime happened. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Before that, I have no excuses. I had a really fantastic family. Granted, my mom and my dad divorced when I was 2. My mom remarried the next year. So
Okay.
my stepdad was in
Were
my
you
life
okay with the stepdad and all that? Okay. Okay.
I was 2 when it
Well, yeah,
happened.
you were 2 years old. I have 3.5-year-old twin, grandsons, so, yeah, they probably wouldn't have had much to say at 2 years old. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
So, yeah, I grew up going to visit my dad every other weekend, and then when I got older, it was maybe once, like, twice a year at tops. But he they good family, 3 brothers, 2 of the 3 were in the military, but, I they were violent guys also,
Mm,
as
okay.
well as my real dad and actually my stepdad, and so that was modeled to me throughout my
What
childhood.
do you so, like, what do you say violent? Like, what do you mean violent? Like,
I used to get in a
what does
lot of
that
fights,
okay,
bar
just be they were just generally
brothers.
getting in fights and stuff.
Yeah, oh,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah, so, they were it was just like, "Oh, I'm an Armstrong, so I have to be a badass like my brothers," and
Yeah,
so, I was an honor roll student when I was a kid, typical suburban life.
yeah,
I had a good life. My mom is the most amazing human I've ever known. She passed away a little over 3 years ago. Thankfully, she got to see me walk out of prison. Um,
yeah.
but she supported me through this entire journey, came to see me every single week in prison for 22 years until they moved
That
to
is
Arizona.
awesome. Wow.
So good people in my family. But I do think that I looked up to my brothers in a way that I wanted to have that edge about me.
Mhm.
And so I kind of modeled their behavior as a teenager. Did not go well for me. So
So, and I can see that because I mean, you're a girl with these, you know, badass brothers, and I'm sure that they kind of tried to protect you with the, you know, they're your sister, the sister who's over here, but the sister's kind of wanting to roll with the brothers who are kind of known as the badasses. But, um, like high school and stuff, like what was your clique? Like, where did you fall into that world?
so I think that one of the reasons that I went down the path that I did is because we moved around a lot from the
Okay.
time I was 10 to when I went to prison.
Yeah.
When I was 16 when I got arrested. So I never really had a sense of stability at the same school. I was constantly the new girl trying to meet people.
Hmm.
So I really started getting in trouble when I was 14. I was born in Grand Junction, Colorado, but I grew up in teeny tiny little towns that are barely even, on the map, little mountain towns, in the
Okay.
middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So when I was 14, we moved to a suburb of Denver. And that's where it all just went bad. I was alone a lot of the time. My parents
Mhm.
owned a mailboxes, et cetera store in downtown Denver.
I
So
remember those. Are those still around?
I
The
don't
mailboxes,
think
et cetera? Those
I
were a
don't
big deal with the '80s and '90s, yeah.
so they were always gone tending to that, and I ended up having a lot of time to myself. And I did not do the right things with that time. I started smoking pot. I kinda didn't have I ended up kinda having a little clique, but initially I didn't in high school.
Mhm,
I was friends with a girl in the neighborhood. I was friends made a couple of friends that were ditching school. I started not going to classes. I had no motivation. I didn't like the school. So then when I was ditching school, we're smoking pot all the time. That eventually a couple years later evolved into me using meth.
mhm,
Had I not gone to prison, I most surely would have become a meth addict.
mhm.
So it saved me from that. Um, yeah, I just it was all bad, I was getting in trouble for stupid things. I got a third-degree assault charge, shoplifting, I was getting speeding tickets, like, I was just getting in trouble, I was on probation, juvenile probation when my crime happened,
So
and,
there was stuff going on around this cloud that was creating that a moment could happen. And like you and I talked the other day, it's so like, I know there's been movies where, if you go left, your life is this, and you go right, and your life
Mhm.
is that. You kind of had that thing happen in that moment where if you hadn't have done this, then that wouldn't have happened. And can you can you kind of lead us into the what happened, the nightmare when it landed, how it got to where it was, and
So,
just the
basically,
moment.
I had been in a relationship for a little under a year with a guy.
Hmm.
During that time, this guy was also seeing another girl. I was being lied to about that. When the crime happened, I actually believed that they were no longer speaking. But they were. He was having relationships with both of us
Hmm.
and pulled it off for a while. Long story short, with the details of that, I ended up getting involved with someone else. We had a breakup. There were threats being exchanged, messages being left on my answering machine, thing of the past, threatening me and my family. And my friends already didn't like the ex boyfriend. They were rival gang
I mean, would
members.
like, sure, would it have been like considered like stalking?
No, I don't think
Just
so.
just irritating
Yeah,
friction.
just
Yeah.
just a lot of trash talking back and forth. I mean, and it had that piece of it happened in a very small time frame, and it
Hmm.
escalated very quickly.
Okay.
And, back then, I'm pretty transparent. Took me a lot of years to be able to speak so openly about all my flaws, but I was a jealous person when I was a teenager. I was insecure. And most of all, I was angry. And
Hmm.
I was the kind of person who had to have the last word all the time. And my
Hmm.
friends were kind of the same way. And so it kind of just became this thing like, well, if you're going to threaten me and my people, we're I'm not going to allow you to do something to me or my mom or my friends.
Hmm.
And so on the night of the crime, basically, I'd been smoking weed all day. I didn't drink alcohol. It makes me very sick. But my co-defendants were, drunk out of their minds. I'm 16 years old. My co-defendants are 16, 17, and 18. We're all young. We end up driving over to the house.
And
It was
who are these people to you? These
My best
co-defendants?
friend is one of them, who, quick side note, ironically ended up doing this. I have a half sleeve tattoo.
Hmm.
He's now out also. He had 2 life without parole sentences. We always maintained a positive relationship, on and off contact throughout all the years we were in. And then when we were both out, I was able to go up to Denver and he did my, this is actually a piece that, kind of symbolizes my time in prison. It's a broken clock,
And he
and
did that.
he did that. He
Well,
did
he
that.
would have
Flo
been a
was very
very
special.
sought after person in prison because
Oh, yeah. He
that
was
was one those
teenager.
guys made a lot of money.
Yes. As teenagers, he would sit there and he would just draw, draw, draw. And he actually, while he was in prison, had a contract with an art gallery. He used to do
Wow.
paintings and sell his art at an art gallery. So yeah, he's a good guy. Lived down the street from me, a mile away or something, and we just got caught up in this bad situation. Things spun out of control that fast, and they had guns. I didn't really believe that they were going to use them.
What was the instigation of it though, Cheryl? And what made
They
everybody
had
jump
been
in the car and go?
on the phone back and forth. That had happened like a day or two prior.
Okay.
Some of those details are a little blurrier for me now. I mean,
Hmm.
and there are some pieces of it that I've completely just lost altogether
Yeah.
because it's just so traumatizing.
Yeah.
Self-imposed trauma, though. I own that. So we decided to drive over there that night. he when we drove up to the house, they went up to the door was locked. They got back in the car. I went to drive off, and, there was a median, and then you turn left to go to his house. Well, I drove straight, and he was outside.
Mm,
And, of course, come to find out later, he had called 911 and was standing in the front yard waiting for the police to show up, which is just really heartbreaking.
mm.
So, I kept driving, and my co-defendants were like, "What are you doing?" I'll never forget it, like, they were screaming at me to turn around, and I did. Turned around, went back to the house. They jumped out of the car, ran into the house. They
And that's
shot
that
and
moment too,
yeah,
where if you hadn't have turned around.
that's the moment. All my life, that's been the moment for me where I'm like, I should have just
Yeah.
kept going. And, they were gonna they talked about, "Oh, we're just gonna shoot up this house," and, but they didn't. When they saw him, they got out, ran in. He didn't have time to lock the door, and they shot and killed him as well as the other girl who was there.
So when that happened, Cheryl, and they came back in the car, did you know what all had happened? I mean,
Yeah, they
I'm sure
told
that
me.
happened very quickly.
It did. I drove around the block, and when they jumped back in the car, they told me what had happened, and I know it sounds kinda lame, like it's, "Oh, yeah, right," but I went between believing it and thinking, "No way. There's no way
Yeah.
they really did this."
Right.
And for many years, I used to try to explain to people, like, "I know it sounds like I'm lying, but I swear to God, I didn't understand how serious it was. I wasn't thinking about the seriousness of it all."
Right.
And so years later, when the science backed that up, I remember crying about it because I was like, wow, they finally have that evidence that what I
Mhm.
was saying is legit.
Mhm.
When you're a teenager, your brain's not fully developed, you don't fully
Isn't it like
comprehend.
21 or 22 where your brain fully
25,
develops? Is it 25?
20.
Okay.
Yeah, my master's thesis actually dives into a lot of that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So,
yeah, so you driving around, you get these guys back in the car, they tell you what happened. What happens?
we drove back to my co-defendant's house that night, and I mean, at that point, we were taking acid. We were, just a lot of substance abuse was going on at that point. The meth.
Mhm.
I had acid in my car, a whole sheet of it. We're smoking weed, they're drinking. Like, we just weren't in our right minds. And, I kept thinking, like, it's not on the news. We didn't hear anything about it. And so I was questioning, like, did they really do it? Are they lying about it? Uh, Unfortunately, they weren't. 4 days later, the bodies were discovered when a cop did a welfare check. I'm a little emotional about it today. Sometimes I could talk about it and I'm good, and there's other times that it
Yeah.
just still hits me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, they found the bodies 4 days later, and one of the guys that had actually been in the car with us that night, he wasn't a shooter, really didn't have any direct involvement, but he had supplied the guns, which he stole from his friend's dad,
Okay.
to my co-defendants. And so when he got busted for that, he ratted us all out. He was like, "This is where the guns went. This is what these guys did with the guns. This is their names." And that was a wrap. We got arrested 4 days later, down the street from my co-defendant's house.
Wow. So
Yeah.
while all this was going on, your mom, no one knew anything that had happened. This
No
was you
clue.
guys were just living in a bubble until you got ratted out.
And there's no way to
And then
even put words to the feeling of that. It was very strange what was going
I
on
can't
those 4 days.
imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine those 4 days. How did they come and get you when this all happened?
So, I'll never forget. It was April 17th. I'm sorry, that's the day of the crime. April 21st. When we got arrested, and it was raining, and me and my co-defendant and another guy who was not connected to the crime, we left in my car to go somewhere. And around the corner where we couldn't see it, there was a Denver gang unit cop car. Well, we weren't in Denver County. We were in Jefferson County. So I knew right then. I was like, this is it. And sure enough, they followed us to a mall, which was right by the house, Southwest Plaza, and pulled us over in the parking lot, guns drawn on us. And that was it. Me and my co-defendant in separate cop cars and took us to the county jail.
What are your thoughts?
Mm, well, it is devastating. But I'll tell you what, when it happened, I was so high from smoking so much weed all the time.
Mhm.
All I wanted to do was go to sleep, and I think about that, and I'm like, it's just disgusting to me that, that's who I was, that was my state of mind, that I was such an uncaring person, so it's hard.
So when that because you're young, you're 15 years old, right?
16.
Okay,
Yeah.
16. Um, did you when you got arrested, Cheryl, you go into the police headquarters.
Yeah.
What do they do with you as a young kid?
They kept me in a holding cell until my parent was present. They
Mhm,
call my mom, and we lived up in Conifer, so it was a good hour away from the Denver Police Department, and it was
mhm,
snowing up there. The
mhm.
weather was terrible, and my mom said, "I'm not coming down there," and they wouldn't even tell her what was going on. She didn't
Because
even know what I was in trouble for, she just knew I was in trouble,
okay.
and so they actually they went and picked her up all the way up in Conifer to bring her down to the station, and they kept me in a holding cell until she got there. They took us in the same room and pulled their usual shenanigans, which I won't get into too much of that, but, saying that my co-defendant had said this and this about me, which it
Mhm.
was all a lie. He
Yeah,
hadn't said anything.
and they can legally lie too. I mean,
And he
for
did.
those that yeah.
And he did. And so I was just in sheer panic, and it was just devastating. I was sobbing. My mom was sobbing. And, I'll never forget. It's hard for me to talk about it, but I'm going to try not to cry. I'll never forget her saying, I don't want my little girl to go to jail. I want to take her home.
Mhm.
And little did she know I would not be coming home for almost 3 decades after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long, Cheryl, did it take for when they took you in that day and your mom is there to when did you go to trial or did you do a plea bargain?
They didn't offer me a plea bargain.
Okay, so you went to trial.
Mhm.
How long did it take for you to get to trial?
7 months, 7 to 8
7
months.
months. And
Yeah,
then what kind of like legal representation did you have? Because your situation was is that you weren't the person who went into the house.
that's
You
right.
were the person that was driving around, kind of like a bank robbery where somebody's driving the getaway car.
But they
But you get
labeled me as, like, the centerpiece of the crime because of my relationship with the
because
victim.
of the relationship with the
Which is
person that they
fair enough.
right.
If I hadn't
S-
drove over there, the crime wouldn't have happened, so I take responsibility for that.
Exactly. So when you walk in and then you would be 16 years old into this courtroom to be looking at um
Life
what was
without
it? What
parole.
life without parole.
They're trying to get me for first-degree murder charges. That's what I went to trial for. Yeah.
How did that whole trial go?
So, this is the part where I've lost big chunks of my memory.
Yeah,
And it's weird because I used
just
to
a
always
blur.
said that it was BS, but it's real. It's a real thing. It is a big blur to me. It really is. I think that I mean, I can't remember a lot of the details. There are a few things here and there that stand out. I just know that it was the most intense misery I've ever felt in my life, day
Yeah,
after day after day. Yeah.
yeah. And, you know, that's it's I know how those things you can block out because like I was 14 years old, and so my dad was sentenced to go to prison, and then 35 years later, that we end up going to prison together.
Um,
But this happened, and I was there. I was in the courtroom, and I know that I remember my grandmother being there. I don't remember a lot of things. for some reason, that day is so blacked out for me, and I wasn't like it was like I was 5 years old. I was in 8th grade, and I
Yeah.
still can't remember that day. Now I can remember the day I got sentenced a lot better, um,
I
but
remember my sentencing day.
yeah, well, tell me about the sentencing day.
Oh, well, the procedure was that the prosecution got to go first. So first of all, the courtroom was filled with the
Mhm.
friends and the family of the victims, and I mean filled. All the juror seats, there was a lot going on in there. They had all written letters. They showed up, as
Right,
they should have, you
right.
know? Um, the judge, who apparently was an alcoholic and was unethical, which came out later, but
Okay.
he
That's a
he,
whole 'nother book.
yeah, he wouldn't let the prosecution present what they wanted to present.
Okay,
And he kept arguing the prosecutor saying, "Well, unless you're gonna give her the maximum sentence, blah, blah, blah," and he told him, "Sit down."
okay.
So he let the defense I got up, made my statement, my mom, my aunts, I think my brother was there. That was before he passed away. I lost 2 of my brothers while I was in prison.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, we said our piece, and it was fast. He was like, he sentenced me to 96 years, 48 years for each count, and I'll never forget that the courtroom just erupted in applause.
mm,
Like it was some sick show or something, like it was really toxic.
mhm.
But you know what? That was what I had created for myself. And so I can't blame him, you know?
How long did it take you to get transferred to where you were going to prison?
They had policies with that stuff in Colorado. So they had to, by the 10th business day, transfer me to, it's called DRDC, like the DOC intake facility.
Yeah.
So when they took me there, I was no longer segregated. You know,
Was there
It-
any discussion at all, Cheryl, about the age that you were? Were you treated any differently? Were you segregated any differently?
in the
How
county
did
jail, they kept me
Okay.
in the hole the whole time.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah. And then once I got to DRDC, I was with general population, and so I sat there for about 2 months until they took me to the prison that I would spend the next 13 years at. I was in 2 prisons. I was in
Mhm.
each of them for about 13 years. So
Let's take a break there because I want to go in when we get back and talk about what it's like for a 16-year-old girl to walk into a maximum security prison and what you thought about how you were going to tackle that life because it's the unknown world. I walked in at 47. I can't imagine walking in at 16. So a lot of people don't like how they show up online. Many individuals think there's no hope when it comes to managing your reputation on Google. There is hope. It's called the Discoverability Company, and they can help you whether you're building a reputation from scratch, repairing search results from after a negative news story. Discoverability can also help you how you're portrayed on popular AI services like ChatGPT. To learn more, visit discoverability.co. It's not .com, .co. Listeners of Nightmare Success can take $100 off with coupon code Nightmare Success. And Nightmare Success podcast is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group, the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I can tell you this is a bunch of people who help each other through the criminal justice journey for free. Whether you're just starting your journey or you've made it through to the other side, this is great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Mondays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. To get more information, go to prisonist.org. It's prisonist.org. Okay, Cheryl. So this young teenage girl is going to the big place that, you know, nobody plans on being there, but a young person. What's going through your mind walking through those gates, knowing that you're going to be there for not a week, a month, but decades?
I wasn't a person. Yeah, I thought I would die in there, honestly. When you're 16 and you have 96 years, you're like, this is it. My mindset was I didn't want to be alive anymore.
Mm,
I'm not the kind of person that would ever try to take my own life. However, in my head, I was like, I can't do this.
mhm.
And I wasn't as strong then as I
Mhm.
am now, of course. After
Right.
everything I've been through, I've
Yeah.
built that. But, I also, though, wasn't a person that had a lot of fear, which is what got me in this situation to begin with.
Right.
I was kind of fearless.
Yeah.
And the whole Armstrong attitude, and so I get to prison and I just dug my heels into all of the worst character traits I had in me. I embraced them. I amplified them. I actually didn't end up having to really fight hardly ever in prison, but
Mhm.
I think that that had to do with who I was hanging out with, who I clicked up with.
Perception. Yeah.
Perception.
Yeah.
And I had such an attitude and I would run my mouth and challenge people and I didn't care, and it worked for me, you know? So
Mhm.
I was not the girl. I mean, everybody probably thinks, "Oh, this poor girl was so young," but, like, I did not really get bullied or, have that type of experience in there. Now, people would have probably have liked to have taken advantage of me. I think there was a couple attempts at that for sure,
Mhm.
but I just had such rigid boundaries. People would come knock on my cell door and I'd be like, "What do you want?" Like I just always had an attitude. The whole like stay away from me vibe. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to know you
Mhm.
unless you're in my tiny little circle.
Mhm.
But it worked
S
for me.
Yeah, that was your protection. That was your
Yeah.
shield.
Yeah.
So, I know a lot changed for you in prison. So you go in hard and Armstrong and, "Don't mess with me because 'cause I'll mess with you." How long did that go on?
For years. For years. I mean, and here's the thing, like, underneath all that, I was just this broken young girl
Yeah,
who I didn't know who I was. I had no
yeah.
real sense of identity yet. I kind of fed off the energy of the few friends I had around me,
Mhm.
and they were violent girls, like, they were fighters. And, one of they kinda took me under their wing, so to speak, even though one of them had also been a juvenile herself, and,
Okay.
was a couple years older than me. But, I just got so lost in that new reality of prison. And in my mind, I'm like, "This is it for me. This is my world for the rest of my life." And so it's hard to
Which is
explain.
hard, it's I think it's hard for people to grasp that. Um, I really do, Cheryl. It's like one of those things where I was talking on another episode not too long ago about, that idea where I was looking down on this Leavenworth prison right before I was gonna go in, the night before I was gonna go voluntarily surrender the next day. And I
Mhm.
saw the people walking around the fence and I saw the lights being turned on in the different blocks, A, B, and C, D blocks. And all I could think about in my mind was, is that, wow, I'm not just going to be there for tomorrow. I'm going to be in there tomorrow, but I'm not going to just be there tomorrow or next week or a month. I'm going to be there for years and I'm not going anywhere. That's the one thing I think that's really tough to get around is like you have to create a life for yourself,
'Cause you're just
and
trapped.
it's also confined. Nobody's going anywhere.
No.
So at what point did, because you're talking about years went by, how did something happen to change your mindset?
I always credit my mother with that. So
Okay.
she's there coming to visit me every weekend, and I was such a jerk. She finally like, I was just so unkind, very cutting with my words, and I took it out on everybody around me because I didn't know how to deal with what my life had become.
And like you said, she's coming every week.
And she finally told me, she was like, "Listen, if you don't want me to come see you anymore, just say
Mhm.
that." She said,
Okay.
"But you're not gonna keep talking to me like this." So I felt like a piece of crap,
Yeah.
because she was the one person that loved me unconditionally, and
Unconditional, right?
and I that kinda opened my eyes a little bit because I remember thinking, "God, I would be devastated if she didn't come to see me anymore. This is what I live for is my visits."
Right.
And so she had encouraged me to start taking some college classes.
Okay.
Like, "You need to do something productive with your time." She was always nagging me. And so finally I was like, "Fine." I took a couple college classes. I put 0 effort into them. I
Yeah.
wasn't into it. I was like, "I don't care about this. Why would I wanna get an education in here? I'm gonna die here. Who
Yeah, what
cares?"
does it mean? Right.
I had this, like, "Who cares about any of this?"
Mhm,
mentality. And, then there was a college program, they started bringing in, like, core curriculum classes towards an associate's degree. Well, you could take them for free if you were, like, a little baby short timer
okay.
and you were now, but if you were someone like me, you had to pay at the time, it was only like 300 something dollars. And
Mhm,
so my mom was like, "Let's do that. Take some classes." And so at that point, I had had another good friend come onto the scene. She had just gotten a life without parole sentence. Her case is actually very famous. Like, she used to get mail from all around the world. Hunter
mhm,
Thompson supported her, like, huge case.
mhm,
She was in the back of a cop car when some guy she knew killed a cop. They held her responsible for it. Anyways, she came on the scene. We were like sisters for many, many years. We started taking college classes together, and I was getting straight A's, and it
mhm,
meant something to me, probably more in there than it would have had I done that out here,
mhm.
because it gave me a sense of purpose.
Right.
And I felt like I had some value and I had
Yeah.
a brain and that I could actually do something with my time besides just treat people bad and be miserable all the time.
Yeah, sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, I was proud
Mhm,
of myself for doing something productive. And also, at the same time, I was sick and tired of myself.
mm,
I just was like, I'm so tired of wasting all this energy on nonsense because everything in prison is so amplified.
yeah,
I mean, stupidest, tiniest things end up with violence or
absolutely.
like something potentially dangerous or
Yeah,
just, real negative happening. And it's like, I was so lost in that for so long. And then I'm like, I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm sick of, like, I don't care about these other people, and I hated the cops and everything was a battle. And I'm just
mhm,
like, no, I cannot handle this anymore. But I didn't know how to change it. There was no self help groups in prison back then
right.
and nothing to help me become a better person. And so I started reading self help books, like Wayne Dyer, the
Mhm,
Tony Robbins, that type of
mhm,
stuff. I was very fascinated by that stuff. And I'm like, okay, I believe in the law of attraction, and the more that I'm putting out there that's negative, that's why these things keep happening to me. And so I
mhm,
started noticing my patterns and all the things that were toxic about me. And let me tell you, going through that process was almost as bad as going through my trial.
mm,
Having to really take a look at all the ugliness inside of me
mhm.
and
Self-reflection, looking in the mirror, yeah.
yeah, which years later is what became, the foundation of Plant Your Energy and my
Mhm,
book and my class,
mhm,
but I had to go through all of this pretty much. I mean, that's a journey that you take by yourself. I'm not saying, yeah, you don't have your support people,
yeah,
but at the end of every day, you're sitting with yourself, and it's like all these thoughts are in my head, and I'm like, my friend that I just mentioned that had the life sentence, she had said to me at one point, and I wrote about it in my book. She's like, we were talking about respect, and I was wanting to change, and I was struggling so bad with it, and I said, if people fear me or they're intimidated, they're gonna respect me. And then she
mhm,
was like, but I'm kind to everybody, and I feel like people respect me.
mm,
And it was just that one little comment. You have those paradigm
yeah,
shifting moments, they're just so profound.
mhm,
That was one of those moments for me, and I realized, like, yeah, my friend has real respect.
mhm,
I don't have real respect from people, and I want that, even if I have to be in prison. And she had said to me, "Even if I have to die in here, I don't I wanna live a good life, like, I wanna be happy," and so I
mhm,
kind of adopted that mindset myself, and I was like, "Yes, I can choose the quality of my days in this place. I don't have to keep being the old me. It's not who I
mhm,
was raised to be in the first place. I get to choose how I treat people, what thoughts I'm putting in my head." And so, I say it in a matter of a few minutes, but this process took, over a decade.
yeah, yeah,
Every day chipping away at it, taking steps back.
Right.
like, and then being hard on yourself, like, "Man, I'm still doing the same things."
So you
And so
were also, I'm sure, Cheryl, because in prison, there are groups. And so I'm sure that you also, as you're making this evolution transformation, that you're starting to hang out and be with different people, just like you said, the laws of attraction. You're going to take classes, you're doing different things, and these are also people that are thinking different than what you were when you came in.
Mhm.
Um, what part of your sentence? Because I know a law changed in 2012 that had to do with minors being prosecuted as adults. What part of your world did that come into play in when you were in prison?
with the laws changing,
So it would have been what years were you in prison?
1995 to 2021.
Okay. So I think wasn't it 2012 that the
There
laws
was
came down?
one ruling in 2012. The first one I wanna say was Roper, and that was in 2005, but that was
Yeah.
banning the death penalty for
Right.
juveniles. And
Right.
then there
Right.
was, like, 3 more after that, which I should have these memorized. Graham is one of the big
Right.
cases. I wrote about this stuff,
Yeah.
like, life revolved around these cases. My
Yeah.
hope revolved around these cases.
Right.
But yeah, that was the big case that happened. There was 2 of them, which were post 2010, I think.
Hmm.
The first one was, that you cannot give a juvenile a mandatory life without parole sentence, and then the big one was, and was that Miller? When they said this is retroactive.
Yes, when they made it retroactive is when it changed. I've had probably 5 or 6 people on where it was retroactive.
Yeah.
So while you're in there, Cheryl, and your life's changing, you're evolving just because you've decided you want to be someone that lives a happy life and an impactful life while you're in prison. Um, when do you start to feel like that you might have the opportunity not to spend the rest of your life in there?
Ooh, honestly, I never had real clarity on that. Um, so I'm sorry, my dog's whining. I got
That's right.
got my associate's degree in 2007, so I had been in for 12 years at that point. So by that time, I was still in that transition of my character, and oh, this is what I wanna do. I love
Yeah.
education. I wanna be better. I got my bachelor's degree in 2011.
Okay.
Still had no hope.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, that I'd be getting out. Yeah, there were a couple of the previous cases, but first of all, I didn't have life without parole, and
Yeah.
so I thought they wouldn't necessarily
Did,
apply to.
and Cheryl did like because like I got sentenced to 5 years, so I can't imagine serving any more than 5 years. So I mean, it seems like everybody I talk to, whatever their sentence, they can't imagine serving any more time than that. When you get into 10 years and then 15 years, I like. Are you feeling like that is your world that you're so disconnected from the other world? Are you still trying to stay connected? How's that? How is it your mind?
My only connection to the outside world for all those years, now it did change a little bit in later years with all the networking and the
Yeah.
advocacy for juveniles, but
Right.
with my family, that was it,
That
but I
was
did
it.
stay connected. I'd call them on the phone, they
Yeah.
would come see me. I mean, I had good relationships with almost everyone in my family minus
Hmm.
one of my brothers.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but, outside of that, none of my friends from when I was a teenager were ever present. I did have one of them who testified against me. She later wrote me and said, I've been following you all these years, and I see all the positive things you've been doing because I started dog training." And she said, "You've really changed, and I think that your sentence is excessive." And so she apologized to me, and, we're Facebook friends now. But
Wow.
it's interesting. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
powerful for me. I remember crying about it because I was just so angry that she was a piece of what went against me, and then she regretted that or changed her mind. She changed her mind down the line.
And you mentioned dog training because when I was at Leavenworth, when I left, dog training came in a year after that. Um, how did that work in where you were?
So we had single cells,
Mhm.
which I did anyways at the first prison I was at. Most of them I'd stay there. Basically, we would train either rescue dogs, which we would get from a lot of them from Raton, New Mexico, interestingly.
Yeah.
Um, 2 of my own dogs I trained in prison, but I trained on and off for 8 years. So in my I the first time I got on the dog program was, like, 2005 to 2007 when I was working on my associate's degree, and they were with us 24 hours a day, and we trained them from start to finish, and we either adopted them out or sent them back home to their families,
Mhm.
and it started out small. Our prison was the first one that it was at with 5 dogs in Colorado and expanded, and I credit the dog program with changing me a lot. It
Mhm.
taught me so much patience, so much patience. It's such a good quality to have. I had none. And
Mhm.
so it just really brightened up my world too. That became a piece of my purpose inside, also, you know? And then years later, in my other prison, I got to do it again when they started it there. And then I worked directly with the associate warden's dog for 2.5 years.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
and I've heard good things about I mean, I'm a dog lover, so I can't imagine being able to have a dog. And when I had my prison job, believe it or not, we got to there was a Fort Leavenworth golf course, and there were 5 guys that they would take over to the golf course. It was like a great job to have, obviously, and there was a dog there, Harley. There was a black lab, and so it was like, just the connection you can make. And now I have a black lab rescue dog, and so it's kind of all full circle. But
Yeah.
all that happening, Cheryl, in there, doing things to make the whole self-reflection thing, and taking the classes, and reading the self-help books. Uh, were you okay with the fact that you were maybe not getting out, and this is just going to be your life?
I wouldn't say that I was ever okay with it. What I would say is that
Because it didn't seem like you ever lost hope.
not completely. No, I flipped a switch in my mind where I was like, when my day comes, they're not going to have a reason to tell me, no, I can't go home. I want to become the so-called model inmate who's not getting in
Yep.
trouble anymore, who's doing the right
Yep.
things, who's living with integrity, who has respect for the right reasons, who's getting an education, who's taking the initiative and having the discipline on my own to get in good shape physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And so
Mhm.
I lost myself in that cause. And it
Yeah.
was beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just changed so drastically.
Well, tell us about when it starts to get real that you could possibly leave prison.
Whew, so it was a scary thing to have hope because it's not like when you have a short sentence and you get a year setback and oh, I got a year and I got another shot.
Right.
For people like me, it was the only shot you're ever going to have is clemency,
Mhm.
and that's a long shot.
Mhm.
And if the laws change, because they had to come in compliance with federal law. And so
Mhm.
that's going to look different in every state.
Right.
We didn't know what Colorado's was going to look like. And the defeating part emotionally with this process is that Colorado's are advocacy groups that were trying to get bills, presented and passed year after year after year. They would not pass. They got shut down, shut down, shut down. And so I was just so over it. I'm just like, I'll believe it when I see it because we keep putting these efforts in and we're getting nowhere.
Mhm.
So sometimes I would feel like, hey, anything could happen. Other times I would feel like this, I'm going to be here forever. They're never
Mhm.
going to change anything to where we have a shot at freedom again. And
Mhm.
so sometimes I don't even know how. I just kept staying positive. I think that, that was my survival mode. Like, I was a runner, I did yoga, I taught circuit training classes, I was a
Mhm.
co-facilitator for 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I did all these different things as well as college and dog training, and I just
Mhm.
was like, I want to get up every day and I want to have a smile on my face. And so I'm going to figure out what that looks like for me in here because at that point, like I'd been in for 10, 15 years at least. And I'm like, I was just a different person at that point.
Yeah.
It became part of my life and this is what it is. And if I get out of prison, I'm going to do everything I can to be prepared for that. But if I don't, I'm going to keep working on me.
Mhm.
And then finally, it got to the point after I got my master's degree in 2016, where it was like, I remember thinking, like, well, what do I do now? Because I was
Yeah.
so used to staying busy. I'm such a
Right.
high energy person. I'm like, what do I do with myself?
Mhm.
And it was like the universe telling me, like, now it's time to give back. It's time for you to create something where you can help other people. And so my way of doing that in there was, of course, through helping facilitate groups that helped people. I mentored people when I could. I was training people how to train dogs. I was doing a lot of
Yeah.
cool stuff.
What an
Eh,
evolution though, Cheryl, from the girl that walked in. Wow.
yeah. It's a pretty, and I think because it's such a significant change of character, I think that sometimes that is why my story stands out to people. Cause I don't know, people are like, oh, your story is intriguing. And
Mhm.
having lived it, I'm like, well, I don't know that I see it that way. So I try to step outside of it. And I'm like, I can see that most people in their lives, whether you go to prison or not, people mostly stay the same. You
Mhm.
make these small changes here and there for good or for bad, hopefully for good. But I think what happened with me was just so one end of the spectrum to the
Right.
other.
So dramatic.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep. So, yeah, that was when, after I got my master's degree, a lot happened that year. That was 2016. So I was writing my master's thesis. The laws, these two bills were being put up, and they were saying we have the votes now.
Okay.
They'd never said that before.
Okay.
And I was just like, "Oh, I'm too scared to believe it's a sure thing." And our advocates behind the scenes kept saying, "We have the votes to get these bills passed." And my brother and my mom and my stepdad went to all these hearings. As a matter of fact, my mom testified about me at one of them. The
Wow.
poor lady, she's in her 70s and she didn't get to testify till like 2 in the morning. It was crazy.
Wow.
And, she had told me, this is kind of a side story, but it's an important part of my life. She had told me when I called her that night, she was like, "I'm still waiting to testify." She said, "So call David," that was my oldest brother,
Mhm.
"and he'll tell you about it because we gotta go back in." So I called my brother and he was just so pumped up. He said, "Let me tell you, the whole vibe in there is not convince us why we should pass this bill, but convince us why we shouldn't." And
Wow.
I was just so like, "Holy shit. Like this might
Yeah.
actually be it."
Yeah.
Um, and 11 days later, he died.
Oh my
My
god.
brother did. 11 days later, that was the last time I talked to him. And he was so excited for me to get out of prison.
How
It is
devastating.
devastating, devastating. So I didn't even, have the capacity to feel the joy because I was so lost in my grief for my
Mhm.
brother. I couldn't be, that excited about getting out, or the fact that I just earned a master's degree that I
Yeah.
worked years for.
Yeah.
I was just like, everything was tainted by him dying. He was one of my closest best friends, loved him to death.
Mhm.
Motorcycle accident.
Mm.
So, from there though, that's when I learned that what Colorado was going to be doing was creating a 3-year program, which they called JCAP, Juveniles
Okay.
Convicted as Adults program. I was the first woman in it and the first woman to graduate it. We now have a second one that just graduated, who I grew up with. She just got out in December or November, right before Thanksgiving. She did 30
Okay.
years.
Wow.
Anyways, I go through this program. I was not a fan, but I was grateful. I remained grateful every day. Like, I'm gonna jump through whatever hoops I need to get to where I'm trying to go, and that's home with my mom.
Mhm.
So at that point, my mom was down in Arizona, so I didn't really have visits very much anymore, and I was just powering through at that point. That's when I wrote the book. That's, create Plant Your Energy was created in like the year after, in 2017, after the
Mhm.
laws changed. But
Mhm.
everything I did before that, I did it to have a sense of purpose. I did it all without knowing if I'd ever get out.
That's what I think is just absolutely incredible. You were just
Thank you.
doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just doing it. I was just doing it. So then when I knew I was going to get out, I'm like, wow. I mean, we still didn't have complete certainty, right? So we finished this program and we had the opportunity to ask for parole. It didn't mean we were going to get it.
And Cheryl, the program itself, like, was it just certain things that you had to accomplish so that you moved forward, and then it was a 3-year program, and if you got through it, then then you were had the opportunity to be accepted into the parole.
It was a 3-year program that could have been done in 3 months.
Okay,
And, they wanted to teach us how to set goals. And
got
I
it.
try not to be cocky, but I was offended, like, "Really? You're trying to teach me how to set a goal?"
Yeah,
Like, I'm pretty sure I taught myself that all these years when none of you people cared about us, and we were
right.
sitting here rotting in
Yeah,
prison.
yeah,
I chose that on my own. So, I had to set my ego to the side and just do what I had to do, and
yeah.
I gained a
Whatever
few
it
things
takes.
from what I was like, "Whatever it takes, I'm doing it, I don't
Yeah,
care. Just do it," you
yeah.
know? So, yeah, yeah, we did like virtual reality stuff, which didn't really help me very much. I got to do some cooking before I got out. They were
So
trying
it's
to
kind of
teach us.
like reentry stuff.
Yeah,
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 yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So you get to the end of that. You do you do you automatically have a date that's prepared for you to go to the parole board?
No, they finally, God, that's kind of blurry to me actually, but they finally had decided, oh, you're going to see parole on this day. And I think that what they did is they split the parole board up and they had one member of the board meet with each one of us. There was myself and there was 8 men
Mhm.
who all
Yeah.
kind of finished the program around the same time.
Okay.
So we all saw parole, and then it was 4 the 4 longest months of my life after that until we got our answer. They called me over during count time, and we all know that when you get called somewhere during count time, it's usually not good.
Good.
So I was like, "Oh, man, what are they calling me out for?" And everybody looks at you like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
of course, by then, everybody knew me so well. It was, people were like, "Oh, is it your answer?" And I'm like, "I don't think so." Like, my I thought I'd be called over to case management for him to say, "This is what it is."
Mhm.
So I get over and they put me in the admin meeting room. It was super weird, and the warden's in there. And he was not like a talkative type of dude, and I'm like, "Well, what's going on? Why?" And he wouldn't even say anything, so I'm like, "Why am I here?" I said, "Am I here for JCAP?" Because they were supposed to had a meeting with me and they didn't, so I thought, "Well,
Okay.
maybe they pushed it out and we're having a meeting."
Okay.
And he lied to me. He's like, "Yeah, I think so. I think that's what it is." So we waited. Finally, he said, "Oh, okay, here, you're gonna have a virtual meeting on this screen behind you." So I turn around and I face the screen. And the first thing that popped up in the bottom left corner, I will never forget it, was all the guys at the men's joint that were in JCAP. And then it was like all these people. It was a huge Zoom meeting. Like, it was a big deal. All these people from the parole board and headquarters staff were popping up in this meeting. And I was like, oh shit, this is it. This is it. And my first thought was, this is messed up that they're going to tell some of us we're getting out right now,
Yeah.
because I was like, there's no way they're letting 9 people with murder charges out of
Uh-huh.
prison all at the same time. They
Yeah.
don't do that. And so they started off by saying, we want to have a moment of silence for the victims. And it was just really intense.
Mhm.
And the head of the parole board was like, well, I'm happy to announce that all of you are going home. And, I just lost it. I could see some of the guys were crying. A few of them jumped up and hopped around. And I just sat there in shock, just sobbing. They even
Wow.
asked me, like, do you have anything to say? I was like, I'm good. I couldn't even talk. I was just so
I can't
overwhelmed
imagine, Cheryl.
with, I mean, after 26 years, almost to the day I served, just that relief, like I could finally just take a real breath.
Take a real breath.
Like, "Oh my god, it's over," you know? Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh, man. So, Cheryl, what happens after that? Like, you like, what goes on? Okay, so you just walk out of the warden's office, and then what?
I'm yelling at people. So I walked back, they had cleared count by then, and, I'm yelling to a couple of the lifers that I know. I'm like, "I made parole, I'm getting out," so everybody could start spreading the
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
Got back into my unit and everybody was waiting. The dog program girls were standing in their doorways. The cop was like, did you make it?" And I was like, because I wanted my mom to be the first
Yeah,
person. So I
yeah.
wouldn't even speak to anybody. And I got on the phone and called my mom and told her.
Oh
And it
gosh.
was just, everybody was standing listening,
Right, right.
waiting to hear what I was going to say to my mom on the phone in the day hall. And oh, what a powerful freaking moment it was. And,
Mm,
it was COVID. So we were all segregated by unit, had to go to the chow hall one unit at a time. Everything was like that.
mhm,
And it was really sad because one of my best friends who's a lifer, I didn't really get to spend time with her or say goodbye to her. And I spent my last 2 weeks in the hole. I'm
mm.
like, oh, this is a great way to finish out my
Yeah,
time. But I
nice way
didn't.
to finish out.
I went up there and slept as much as I possibly could and then exercised when I was awake and just was like, let's go. Come on, time.
So you get out. How do you get out? Uh,
So when my nephew, so because my mom had COPD, and the
okay.
dream, she was always said, "Well, I'm gonna pick you up in a limo and we're gonna have balloons and it's gonna be fun." It was
Yeah,
so not like that at
right.
all. It's super low key.
Yeah,
My nephew and my ex-sister-in-law picked me up. It was crappy weather, but I refused to get on a plane. I said, "There is no way I'm stepping out of prison after almost 3 decades inside and going to an airport and getting on a plane." Like,
okay,
my anxiety would have been
okay.
there was no. So I said, "We gotta drive." So my nephew was like, "Cool, he's the greatest guy." So they rented a car and we made the drive, 12-hour drive from Pueblo, Colorado to Phoenix,
Wow.
my mom and my stepdad's house. And so we got there about, I don't know, after 10 o'clock that night by the time we got there, because we stopped and got me a couple pairs of jeans, and
Yeah, become a person again. Yeah.
we stopped in Albuquerque, and, they're famous for their green chili, so we're like, "Let's go get some Mexican food," and
Uh-huh.
but it was just real low key, it was,
It
s
had to be really like
it didn't seem real. I
oh,
don't I
like,
don't know how to say
I
it.
mean, everything, a lot of people say when they spend that amount of time in prison, it goes from black and white to color. Like, you're all of a sudden hit with all these like feels and
Stimuli.
yeah, exactly. So how so you took that drive, which was probably a good idea because you could kind of get like a slow mo into seeing
Mhm.
everything.
Mhm.
Um, seeing your mom out of prison, that had to be such a big deal.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal, but I can tell you that interestingly enough, I didn't cry. I
Mm.
think that I was almost in shock.
Yeah, total shock. Yeah.
Total shock. I mean, we walked in the house and it was just like this really calm vibe. It was so weird. I always pictured it would be the complete opposite, the hopping and hugging and
Uh-huh.
woo
Yeah,
woo.
yeah.
It wasn't any of that. It was just so laid back. And I got to reunite with my dogs that I trained in prison. It was just really weird.
It's just
Super
awesome. Just
weird. Yeah.
incredibly awesome.
Fantastic.
So how does it go? Like I know what you're doing today. So how do you evolve to where you are today?
Mm, Same mentality I had inside. My first goal was to get my book published. I had
Mhm.
made a commitment to myself to have the first final draft of it finished by the time I walked out. I did that. Got my book published 6 months later. And then, I wanted to work in reentry, so I
Mhm.
ended up getting a job at a reentry place in Phoenix. I was a peer support specialist, then I promoted to a clinician, and I was running IOP programs. It was a good job. I kinda
Mhm.
got burnt out, ended up leaving there, but I've been in a peer support role for 2 years at the company I'm with now.
Mhm.
I'm actually trying to switch to a different department. I'm gonna have an interview in the next week trying to level up eventually at this company. But as far as Plant Your Energy goes, I reached out to
Yeah,
the
let's
guy,
talk about that.
the old associate warden whose dog I had worked with for 2.5 years. He
Mhm.
promoted up to about as high as he could go up at headquarters. And so I reached out to him and said, "Hey, I got my book published. I'm developing a curriculum to go with it." So I wrote some of it kind of, it mimics the book, but it's a workbook that I created for the inmates to be able to keep, because they never let you keep the books from
Mhm.
their classes. And I'm like, I
Mhm.
want them to have something they can,
Go
like a
back
self
to, right.
tool they
Mhm.
can go back to and reference and work through things. And so developed that. It's on Amazon now too. And so I pitched it to this guy at headquarters,
Mhm.
and I thought I was gonna have to jump through all these hoops, and they green lighted me immediately to do a pilot program. I was just like, that was so, like, too easy, too
But,
easy, and so
don't you think, Cheryl, that one of the things that happens with, especially what you've gone through, when you start gaining that confidence and you started realizing, like when you started getting your grades and your master and all that, I think there's a part of you that is like, okay, if I did that, then I can do this. And even though it's an unknown thing, you have a little like edge to you that I'm not as afraid of it. I'm not as afraid as the unknown as maybe somebody usually is. It's like, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen?
and I became the kind of person, I think I've said this to you over the phone, where I'll put my own dirty laundry out there before anybody else can say anything about me.
Hmm.
So I'm just going to tell you who I am and what it is, and you can take or leave me, and that's fine. Not
Hmm.
everybody is for everybody. I will find my people. And I developed so much confidence in prison that I walked out just on fire with passion for Plant Your Energy. And I'm like, taking over the world. I'm going to, I want my program to be everywhere. And, it hasn't exactly played out like that, but it's not over yet.
Yeah.
It's not over. It's a process.
It's always a
And
process. But the thing about plant your energy, it's obviously great for people that are in prison because you have that experience that you lived and evolved and transformed your life in prison. And you know what those elements and that discipline is. But that is also the same of people in prisons in their own mind on the outside. And
yeah.
those people can get just as institutionalized and just as broken to want to and need to find those things that make the next step happen.
So eventually what I would like to do is I would like to take each chapter of my book and turn it into like a smaller version, but 7 separate books
Mhm.
that aren't necessarily geared towards incarceration. They're just geared towards people. Like you just
Mhm.
said, like, I feel like what I've created with my book and curriculum applies to human beings. We all
Right.
have demons. We all have these issues we need to face. We all have things we need to work on. And so there's so many different directions I could go with it, which is what I love about it.
Mhm.
But it's just me, and I have this other full-time job, and I have all these other things happening in life. And then my stepdad died, and then my mom died, and then the guy I was with died. Um, all within an 18-month period
And you
after I
just
got
keep
out.
trudging through.
And so that broke me. Losing my mom has
Yeah.
changed forever. I still have my struggles with it. It kinda killed my motivation.
Yeah.
Um, I just didn't know what to do without her. She'd always
Mhm.
been my rock, and I had to figure everything out by myself now, but she prepared me so well to live
Mhm.
my life without her.
Yeah.
She's such a wonderful person, and so, like, I learned to take care of all her stuff after she died. And okay, now I'm paying bills, I'm building credit. This is how you do these things. And just, navigating through the unknown and taking it one day at a time.
That's such good advice too. I mean, navigating through the unknown and taking it one day at a time is really the best and only thing. And I mean, I guess it's not true. You can get stuck and stay in one spot, and then that's a really bad situation because you
Doesn't make any
right,
sense.
right,
That's what I tell people. I'm like, why would you keep choosing that for yourself? That's
right,
insanity. You
right,
can think whatever you want, like step up out of that.
right.
We don't have
Well,
to
and
stay.
Cheryl, you know that what we're talking about, like whether you're inside or outside, whether you're in prison or out of prison, um, what happens is like you'll see people in prison that will do something crazy before they get out because this ugly, awful routine that they hate has become the familiar thing that they know. And they're
Yeah.
more familiar with that than they are being free on the outside. And that's what people do on the outside too. They stay in that job, they stay in the marriage, they stay in whatever those things are. Um,
Fear-based.
it's
Most people
fear-based, and it's
won't admit
only
it.
fear-based because they don't like it. They know they don't like it. It's just what would happen if I take a step into something that I feel more like that's me? It's unknown. And what you're saying is you're stepping into things, and each time you stepped into things, you're finding out more about yourself, but you're also seeing that it wasn't nearly as scary as I thought it was. I got through it.
If you don't try, you'll never know. And, I didn't wanna just be mediocre. I don't want it my legacy to be I'm some, you know, bad person that committed this terrible crime as a teenager and did all this time in prison, but I did nothing with it. I didn't
Yeah.
wanna be that person, and so I don't want other people to be that person,
Right.
and so that's kind of what motivates me now is it's like, I wanna reach back in and to even people that don't have, like we said, a criminal
Right.
background and say,
For
"Hey, like,
everybody. Mhm.
you can choose something different. You're letting your fear dictate the quality of your life, and it just doesn't make any sense."
Well, and you've had things come full circle. You've had people that have taken your curriculum and said, "This is the best thing I've had. Of all the things I've had this
Yeah.
thing," and how good that has to make you feel that you have gone all the way around this circle and evolved to the point where you're giving back, paying it forward. It's got to feel
Yep.
good. That's got
And
to
I
feel
have
good.
girls that took my class and graduated, and a couple guys too that have
Yeah,
gotten out, reached out to me and said, "Hey," and they'll friend request me and I won't accept it because I'm like, "Who are you? I don't know you."
yeah,
And then they'll send me a message on Messenger and they're like, "Hey, I took your class and I just wanted to let you know how much it helped me." And I'm like, "This right here is what it's all about, you
yeah,
know?" Um, which I did the LinkedIn post on that, which is what connected me back to the other woman at the
yeah.
college. And so it's really beautiful.
It
But if
is.
I didn't face my fear and push through it, none of this would have
None of it
ever.
would have happened. You would have been that girl that was bullying around people, and missed all the opportunities and probably
Yeah.
still be in there being
Yeah.
mad. So it's just it's just a it's such a wonderful story, Cheryl, that things can happen. Don't give up.
That's right.
Don't quit. Don't lose hope. Change can happen in a way that you could have never have imagined. And
Yes.
then what you're doing now, being able to give back and help people. I love this. I just love the story. It's such good stuff. If I was going to ask you what's your biggest takeaway through all of this, what would you think?
Biggest takeaway. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it's like none of us are the worst thing that we've done in our lives.
Right.
And just remembering that we get to wake up and choose the state of our mind every day. And that's going to completely potentially change the entire course of your life to grasp the power in that and to hold on to it and cultivate it. Do something with it, even if it just means you're a happier person. That in itself is a huge win in your life, you know? Even if it means you stop going back to prison, you stop going back to addiction, you stop letting people abuse you in relationships, whatever it is that your demons are, like knowing that you can choose something different and facing your fears, you know, and I'm pretty blunt with my curriculum. I kind of just tell people like you have to own your shit.
Mhm.
You have to take responsibility for who you are, the good and the bad. Sometimes more so the bad, because that's what you need to
That's where real
change.
change happens, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
that's right.
What a great takeaway, by the way.
Thank you.
Really powerful. I mean, everything you just said there. I mean, you could write a book about that, what you have, but it's it is
Yeah.
powerful. And when and going to get your book, go to Amazon.
Yeah. It's on Amazon.
Got it. And the title of your book.
Is plant your energy, face your demons, and transform your life.
Love that. And that's
Thank you.
also the name of you're the founder of Plant Your Energy. And so
Yes.
that all works. That all marketing wise
Yeah.
works. I want to thank Homestead Financial Home Mortgage for letting me use this podcast studio and all the fancy lights and the cameras and stuff. If you've got home mortgage needs out there, Greg Aftiev is your guy. He knows all that stuff. If you're looking for my book, when you're looking for Cheryl's book, just get them both. Mine's Nightmare Success, Loyalty Betrayal, Life Behind Bars, Adapting, Finally Breaking Free. I know it's kind of a hassle, but if you got time, leave me a review on Apple. Those are great. They really pump the show, and I love reading those. You want to know about more of what I'm doing, go to brentcassity.com. I spell it wrong. I spell it with a TY, not a DY. Um, and I also got a new nightmaresuccess.com. So if you don't want to go to Spotify, Apple, all those different places and want to know a little bit more about the episodes, go to nightmaresuccess.com. And as I used to say to my people when I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Cheryl Armstrong, just love your story. Love what you've been able to do
Thank
with
you.
yourself. The reentry stuff, you're just going to continue to be a powerhouse and don't stop. Don't stop anything you're doing.
That's stuff.
All right. All right. Nightmare Success in and out.